He had just minutes left to live. Abandoned, broken, and unwanted. The shelter staff were ready to put him down, believing he was beyond saving. Then an elderly man walked in and did something no one expected. What happened next left everyone in the room speechless. The cold metal bars of the small shelter cage rattled as Max shifted uncomfortably. His fur, once a proud golden brown, was now dull and matted. He had stopped barking weeks ago. Days had blended into nights, and every morning he watched other dogs wag their tails, running into the arms of happy families while he was left behind, unwanted, forgotten. The shelter was quieter than usual that morning. Staff moved with heavy hearts, avoiding his cage. Max tilted his head, sensing something was different. A thin beam of light fell across the concrete floor, and the smell of disinfectant filled the air. Deep down he could feel it. Today wasn't like the others. Today something final was coming. In the staff office, a young volunteer whispered to the head caretaker, her voice trembling, "Are you sure this is it for him?" The caretaker sighed and nodded, glancing at the clock. "We've done everything we can. No one's coming for him. It's time." Back in his cage, Max let out a low, mournful whimper. His paws pressed against the bars as if he could hold on to life a little longer. The world outside had abandoned him, and all he could do now was wait. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the hallway, signaling what he feared was his very last day. Just as the shelter worker reached for Max's leash, the front door creaked open. A soft jingle of the bell announced a visitor. Everyone turned to see an elderly man shuffling in, his worn red cap tilted slightly and a warm weathered smile on his face. His name was Henry, a widower who lived alone on the edge of town. Henry's eyes scanned the rows of cages, and for a moment he felt a heaviness in his chest. "I'm looking for a friend," he said quietly to the receptionist. She hesitated, unsure if he was serious. Most visitors wanted puppies or playful dogs, not an old German shepherd with a broken spirit. Then Henry's gaze landed on Max. The dog didn't move, just lifted his head and locked eyes with the man. Something unspoken passed between them. Loneliness. Recognizing loneliness. "Can I meet him?" Henry asked, his voice gentle but firm. The caretaker led him to the cage, sliding the door open. Max hesitated, unsure if this was another false hope. Slowly, he took one shaky step forward. Henry knelt on the cold concrete floor, extending his wrinkled hand. "Hey, buddy," he whispered. Max leaned forward, sniffing his hand. For the first time in weeks, his tail gave a tiny, uncertain wag. The shelter room fell silent except for the soft sound of Max's cautious steps. Henry slowly sat down on the floor, ignoring the chills seeping through his knees. He didn't rush, didn't call the dog over. He simply waited. In that stillness, Max crept closer, his ears twitching, his eyes locked on the man's face as if searching for something he had lost long ago. Henry whispered, "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." His hand remained open, patient. When Max finally pressed his nose against Henry's palm, the old man's heart swelled. It was a simple touch, but it was as if the world shifted for them both, one lonely soul recognizing another. Moments later, Henry scratched gently behind Max's ear. The dog leaned into his touch, a soft whine escaping his throat. A caretaker watching from the corner, wiped away a tear. She had never seen Max respond to anyone like this. Henry looked up and said, "I think he just chose me." The shelter manager hesitated. "Sir, he's on the list. He's scheduled for tomorrow." Henry's jaw tightened. He looked back at Max, who now rested his head on the old man's lap as if he had finally found safety. "Then take him off the list," Henry said. "He's coming home with me." Henry carried Max's adoption papers in one hand and the leash in the other, but the dog didn't pull or resist. Instead, Max walked calmly by his side as if he knew he was leaving the shadows behind forever. The old man's car was small, but Max leaped into the back seat without hesitation, curling up as Henry softly whispered, "You're safe now, buddy. You're going home." The drive was quiet, only the hum of the engine and the occasional sigh from Max. Henry glanced in the rearview mirror and caught the dog watching him with soulful brown eyes. "We're going to take care of each other," he said with a smile. The dog's tail gave the slightest wag, a silent promise of trust. When they arrived at Henry's cozy little house, Max sniffed the porch and cautiously stepped inside. He explored every corner, then returned to Henry sitting close enough that his fur brushed the man's leg. Henry chuckled softly, lowering himself to the floor to meet the dog at eye level. "You belong here," Henry whispered. Max licked the man's hand, and for the first time in months, Henry felt his house come alive. The silence that once haunted the rooms was now replaced with the quiet warmth of companionship. The days that followed were nothing short of magical for Henry and Max. At first, Max was cautious, sleeping curled up in the corner of the living room as though he feared being sent away. But Henry never rushed him. He spoke softly, offering gentle pats and leaving treats on the floor, allowing Max to come closer at his own pace. By the third morning, Henry woke to find Max at the foot of his bed, his head resting on the quilt. The dog's eyes were half closed, but when Henry reached out to scratch behind his ears, Max's tail thumped gently against the sheets. "Good boy," Henry whispered, feeling an unexpected surge of joy in his chest. Henry also noticed changes in himself. The quiet house that once echoed with loneliness now felt alive, with small, happy moments. Paws patting across the wooden floors, the jingle of a collar, soft sighs as Max snapped by the fireplace. Neighbors began stopping by during Henry's morning walks, smiling at the gentle pair. Each passing day, Max grew more playful and confident, while Henry's heart grew lighter. Together they were healing two souls that had been abandoned by the world, but had now found each other. One chilly evening, as Henry prepared dinner, he noticed Max pacing near the front door, whining softly. At first, he thought the dog just wanted to go out, but something felt different. Max's movements were restless, his breathing slightly uneven. Henry's heart skipped. "Easy boy," he murmured, kneeling beside him. He felt Max's fur trembling under his palm. Wave of fear washed over him. After everything they had been through, he couldn't bear the thought of losing his new companion. Without hesitation, Henry called the local vet, his voice shaking. "Something's wrong with Max. Please, can you come?" Within 20 minutes, the vet arrived, kneeling on Henry's living room floor. After a quick examination, she offered a reassuring smile. "He's not in danger," she explained gently. "He's just anxious. He's still adjusting. It's like he's afraid this happiness won't last." Henry's chest tightened. He realized Max wasn't just healing physically. His heart still carried scars of abandonment. That night, Henry stayed by Max's side on the living room floor, whispering stories and promises that he would never let him go. Slowly, Max's eyes closed and his breathing steadied. Henry knew then that trust wasn't given, it was earned, and he would spend every day proving to Max that he was home for good. The following morning, Henry woke to find Max curled up against his chest, his warm breath rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. For the first time since bringing him home, Max's tail gave a gentle wag as he opened his eyes. It was as if in that quiet moment the dog had finally understood he was safe. If you were moved by this incredible story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.